So I'm going to be showing us how to mix your bass in context of contemporary gospel music. A lot of people, a lot of engineers, I understand, the battle of how to ensure you have that definition in your low end, and especially when it comes to the bass, the mixing of the bass is quite a bit of a hassle. But I'm just going to show you my approach to mixing bass sounded like this to sound more like this. Okay, so the first thing I actually do is when I get a bass track, all right, I duplicate the bass track. Okay, so I'll duplicate the bass track and have it two channels. So here you can see where I named this first one synth bass and the second one bass guitar. They are the same thing, but two different things are happening, with these tracks. First of all, this one that I named synth bass, what I do is I throw in an EQ. In this case, I'm using the Cubase stock frequency EQ, and I do a high pass up to like almost 500. Okay, and boost say close to 1k, just boost close to 1k. So if we're to just listen to that track, you'd hear it sound. So primarily what I'm doing is I'm taking away the lows. Okay, I'm just taking away the lows, and I'm just kind of harnessing the high, the MIDI parts that's more like having that grit of it. Okay, that's what I'm basically doing on the first channel. And the second channel, I'm pretty much doing the opposite, all right, whereby I'm doing a low pass. I'm throwing an EQ and I'm doing a low pass almost close to that 500. So where I'm like boosting, like getting that sub part of the mix. So listen. So that's what I'm doing, okay? And when I bring them together, I'm having it sound. So it's almost appearing like it's having that grittiness, heavy grittiness, as opposed to, the bass that was just sent. So let me even just play the bass that was just sent. Okay, that's without that style of processing. What it is this. So, but when I introduce doubling the tracks, doing the high pass on one track and low pass on one track, you can hear that bloominess coming up. Now, with this, I tend to route everything to a bass bus, and this is where I do the final processing. Right? So the first thing I'm bringing up here is I start my bass chain with the R bass stereo. Okay, I'm using the R bass stereo, and this is just an automatic game changer. So where I have the frequency at 60, compressing anything from 60 below, and having the intensity. Now this intensity is how much of the effect I want that compression on. And the more you bring this knob down or boost it up, you have to compensate the volume with the gain knob. So throwing my arrow bass into this, without it, with it. So that's the first thing I do. Then the next thing I'm having happening on this basis, I'm doing a compression with the Pulsar 1178, and this compression, I'm also doing a side chain, compression of 100 hertz. Um, um, I'm having an attack of 5, having my release on 7. Okay, and I'm having the saturation. One thing about this Pulsar 1178 is that it has a saturation section too, where you have different saturation. You have the tape, you have the triode, you have the worm, you have the clip. But for bass, I would like to either double around either the tape or the triode. And if you come down below these choices, you would see a kind of screw. This is a calibration control for the saturation, how much of the color you want to add, So the more you turn it up, the more you are getting into the distorted parts. But you have to put a little bit of control to how much you are turning this screw. So I usually will not put it much, okay, but it gives very, very good color. So for this compressor, hitting it, so I'm reaching for about -6, -7 gain reduction. Okay. Yeah. After that, the next thing I'm bringing on is my CLA bass stereo, and what I'm just using here is just the pitch, okay, and is to have a more, widespread of my bass. So everything is turned off, just this pitch knob, and I'm having the chorus, and I'm just pushing it a bit, on the top. So okay, so that's what I'm doing with that CLA bass, stereo. Then the last thing is I'm doing a side chain, and I'm using this track spacer, to do this side chain. Now, this track spacer is a very interesting plugin. It's a very interesting plugin, and what I'm doing is actually side chaining to the kick. I'm side chaining to the kick, and I'm side chaining, where I feel that kick would be having its punch. All right. So what I do is to ensure that I'm having my low cut to about 40 and my high cut to about 250 hertz. That's this low cut knob and a high cut knob here. Okay. So then this is my side chain. I'm activating my side chain on, and I'm routing it to my kick, whereby I'm dropping it to about -1.5. So what that means is that whenever the kick comes in, the bass docks to about minus 1.5 decibel. Also, it creates the illusion that the bass is around the kick and the kick is more centered in action. Okay, and the kick is more centered in action. So the amount of the compression that I'm having on this side chain is about 25%. So I'm going to activate my kick, okay, and the bass, so you'd hear what the action feels like. So you hear what the action feels like. Okay. So everything with the bass, and the kick with my track spacer. So you see the blue line. The blue line is like taking that center punch of the kick. Then the white line is showing you the docking. Okay. So that's how generally I create that massive bass sound. All right. So if I were to pair the drums, with this bass, everything being active, this is that's with the entire processing, this is what you'd get. Without the processing of the bass, with the processing, so you can just feel the night and day. So that's pretty much how I approach, mixing my bass for contemporary gospel, giving the bass that definition. I hope this helps. Try these concepts in your mix. All right.